hello everybody, Dylan here, and I'll be comparing video encoding codecs. I am presenting my findings today because in a world of video editing, there are thousands of codecs to answer the needs of individual producers. Through all of these, a select few have been successful to the point of almost being used exclusively as they answer to many of the requirements that people have. What are the needs that these codecs fulfill? They work to balance space restraints with time restraints, while not sacrificing quality. The best codecs balance both of these as nicely as possible, offering the fastest compression possible, while making sure to minimize bitrate. However, some codecs gear towards opposite sides of the balance. As such, I will cover the balance of the codecs between these in detail. So, I'll be covering 14 codecs in detail, and I have selected these as prominent codecs from a variety of times and styles. To keep the study unbiased, I used similar settings to make sure that each codec shined in the way that it was designed to by using either a constant quantizer of 22 or a simple quality percentage of 75%. As for how this data was collected, I benchmarked all the codecs myself with my modest hardware. With that, we are ready to begin, but before that, let's cover the basics of what we will be covering. Time is the duration that it takes to render this minute-long video. Bitrate is the overall size, measured in kbps, which is short for kilobits per second. For every codec, both time and bitrate will be measured to give you the full context of what the codec is capable of. To start, we will cover the basics of video compression, which is to say, little to none at all. In this category, I tested two prominent lossless codecs. One is simple RGB, which is essentially red, green, blue based colors with no compression whatsoever. The other was Lagarith, or lags for short. After rendering, the data came out to be as such. Lags was significantly faster to encode and immensely smaller in terms of bitrate. The reason for this is that lags has basic compression algorithms that work without being lossy. RGB ensures that you get everything. However, it also ensures that you have immense file sizes, which stress your hard drive, which doesn't prove to be a problem in other codecs. The mean time for this category is 1 minute, or real time. The mean bitrate is a whopping 364,891 kbps. In the end, these two codecs are very high quality and speedy. However, there is only one word to describe the files left behind. On the flip side, we have the newest in compression technology. Can't be too bad. Indeed, the results show the ridiculous rendering times of H.265 and VP9. However, they indeed compress video quite well when needed, with a category mean bitrate of 1,336. You can have approximately 4.5 minutes of video for the same file size of 1 second lossless. On the other hand, the mean time is 10 minutes and 15 seconds. This is a bit of a wait, especially when applied to hours of video footage needed or in higher quality video. Next, we will cover the basic compression codecs. Most of these are come-and-gone codecs from the 90s that still occasionally see use and are actually installed on most every computer. Many of these vary greatly, but they certainly don't compete with the current codec. However, they really threw me for a loop when I learned about other aspects of these codecs. Here's the data, which indicates many different things. The verdict: SignPack and Theora, both are awful. Theora attained a lower bitrate than H.265, with less time. I was surprised until I saw the file. Both versions of VP6 also had rendering artifacts with their speed and low bitrate. However, if quality isn't important to you, then speed and low bitrate are attained. SignPack, I don't even know where to begin. It took 26.5 minutes for me to render, with a bitrate of 20,000. And it was among the worst offenders of rendering artifacts too. Point and check, don't use SignPack. On the other hand, the oldest codec of the lot, Microsoft Video 1, was quite a pleasure to use. It rendered rather quickly, and in the end looked much better than anything else in its generation. If not for some of the upcoming modern codecs, I'd honestly use this codec today, and it was made in 1990. Its bitrate of nearly 9,000 left to be desired, but for everything else this codec has to offer, it's quite acceptable. In the end, this category was a mixed bag. Its mean of 8 minutes and 36 seconds and a bitrate of 6,336 is muttered with the many outlying codecs. And now we come to the final category, the modern, currently commonly used codecs. The most commonly used is H.264, the predecessor to H.265. 264 was introduced in 2006, but keeps prevalence today as it is commonly modified to fit different parameters and has multiple forms. In fact, everything in this graph is a form of H.264 besides VP8. Handbrake and Hybrid are two video converters that use 264 differently. Handbrake is slower, but slightly more efficient. Hybrid is faster, but slightly less efficient. XVID is a variant of 264 that, in rendering, I was not particularly pleased with, as it showed similar results to the VP6 codec from last category. QSV is short for Quick Sync Video, and is unbelievably fast. In fact, Handbrake is the slowest I've ever seen it. Its bit rates are larger than basic H.264, however, its speed more than makes up for it. And VP8 is very comparable to H.264. In the end, this current generation of codecs are very competitive, and mostly are very comparable in terms of quality. Now that we have reviewed all the data that has been collected, we can begin to reflect on it. Most every codec that stood out here has their reason for operating and their own technology. Thinking about it, the early codecs that threw me through a loop earlier, with their extremely lossy output yet very low bitrate, makes sense. As I wasn't measuring video quality because it couldn't objectively be measured, I never considered it. Certain codecs can be designed around compressing more, but not more efficient. This wouldn't be addressed until the early 2000s when streaming video became more and more feasible. Due to limited bit rates that the internet can produce, lossless video was by far out of the question. Turning compression up without the means for quality would also be a big no-no, so something had to be done. As such, current codecs such as H.264 were created. It used more intensive compression measures to ensure that it was saving space wisely instead of just shaving it off where it could afford to. As such, revolutionary technologies came to bear, what makes current encoders such as H.265 and VP9 so impressive. One such trick is the concept of color recognition. The resolution that I used, 1280 by 720, stands for how many pixels the video displays. Raw video would send data equivalent to all of these pixels, all 921,600 of them. However, if say an area of 50 by 50 pixels are the same exact color, why not make them the same pixel? The second technique is remembering previous frames, and if a certain spot of color doesn't change, why send the information again? Thus it essentially copies and pastes the data like a high school student using Wikipedia the day before their research papers do. Many other, more complex methods are implemented, and processing all of these are why it takes so much longer to save space, but they are all of this efficient nature. Now that we have the data and analysis done, we can come to the final portion, reflecting on mistakes and difficulties. 1. My main software, Hybrid, cutting out on me and having to replace it. Needless to say, that was a difficulty. 2. External programs can have limited effects on how much system resources are given to my encoders. Above high priority, fix the effects of this to only a few seconds across the whole data set. 3. Subcodecs were designed to use system resources differently, which is to say that there may be some time discrepancies minor by not using similar system resources. With everything said and done, there is a reason why H.264 has attained the global popularity it has. It is quite capable at compressing at high speeds and quality, balancing everything exceptionally. On release, it was even referred to as magic by some. H.265 will undoubtedly take its place in the future, but 4 keeps the title the best codec for now until hardware becomes more suited to handle its demands. So that's that. I hope everybody learned something today, and see you next time.